Welcome to the Life Engineering Podcast. My name is Gabriela Embon, former chemical engineer, relationship coach, and author. In each episode, we'll uncover the wisdom, strategies, and tools to help you build thriving relationships and purpose-driven careers. My wish is that something shared in this space touches your heart, brings clarity, or gently guides you toward what you need most in your life right now. Thank you for being here. Let's begin now. Wow, welcome, dear listeners, to another episode of the Life Engineering Podcast. And I say wow because today you are up for a real treat. But let me start by asking you a few questions. What does it take to become the kind of leader who ends their career with no regrets? You know, we're all about creating a life with no regrets. So how would that look like when you are a leader? How do you lead in a way that leaves a legacy, not just a track record, right? And then when the pressure is high, how do you make decisions today that your future self will thank you for? So I don't know about you, but I've asked myself those questions. I'm sure you have asked yourself those questions as well. Or wonder how to align your leadership with purpose, how to align your leadership with impact and personal fulfillment. And if you ask those questions, like I said, you are in the right place because today's guest is someone who spent the last 25 years plus answering those questions and guiding leaders to do exactly that in the real world, inside Fortune 500 boardrooms, elite universities, and life-changing coaching rooms. So I'm very thrilled to welcome John Gallagher, the founder of Growing Champions Coaching and Consulting. He's also the host of the Uncommon Leader podcast and the creator of a leadership methodology that helps executives, entrepreneurs, and visionaries rewrite their story and rise with purpose. So John is not just a master of the lean methodology. He is actually a builder of legacy, a steward of faith, a man who's as committed to putting away shopping carts as he is to coaching C-suite leaders. We'll get into that, I promise. So get ready to rethink leadership, realign your influence, and be reminded of the leader you were always meant to become. John, after a long introduction, welcome to the show.
Gabriela, that was such a gracious introduction. Thank you so much. I'm going to have you go with me and do that introduction all the time. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation today. It's going to be great.
I know that it's going to be fantastic. We already spoke outside this and at your podcast as well. So let me start by asking you the first question is, I'm really curious to know the story because there's always a story. I mean, you spent over 2 decades coaching some of the world's top companies. I want to know what originally drew you to leadership coaching, to executive coaching. Take us to that moment, please.
Yeah, I love this question. And to start right off, and again, based on what we're doing, these types of conversations right here, to hear these stories are so really cool. I go back in time. You mentioned like 25 years. I mean, I still consider myself to be a student of leadership, certainly not an expert in the leadership space, but something that I'm always working on. And that wasn't always the case for me. I remember the day kind of walking across the stage in college to get my engineering degree and was so grateful after I was finished with that and got my degree that I wasn't going to have to read anymore. I wasn't going to have any more books and all those things that were needed to go forward. Fast forward just a few years as an engineer, and I was asked by who's still a mentor of mine today, over 25 years ago, to lead a facility of over 200 people. And that word leadership really was something that was a word I barely knew how to spell in terms of spelling leadership. What did that really mean to be a leader? But what I truly remember that converted me here was that leader brought me a book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell, a book that still sits on my bookshelf today for those who are watching via video. It's been through a couple floods in my house and it's got some mold on the inside of it, but I've kept it. But it was a book that introduced me to this concept of leadership. And I remember one of the first things I read inside, it said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that just hit me in a profound way. And I wasn't exactly sure why. But that mentor sat down with me and read that book with me chapter by chapter over the series of a couple months. And by the time I was finished with that book, I tell you, I was hooked. I was ready to go all in with regards to personal leadership development, developing myself. And I do believe for organizations to be successful and for leaders to be successful, it starts with the choice to develop yourself. Then you can think about developing your team and all the structures around your business, but it starts with developing yourself. So at that point in 1998, I started the journey. You can see these books behind me on the bookshelf. Those are ones that I've read and I continue to read today and become a reader. Part of a side note that's really funny is my mom will listen to all of these podcasts as well. And she often says, you weren't a reader growing up. Why are you such a reader now? Well, I didn't read the books that she liked for me to read, but ultimately I consume myself on a daily basis inside of leadership books to continuously grow. And I don't know another way now.
Well, thank you for your story, and I couldn't resonate more. We spoke about the four pillars of a legendary marriage, and the first pillar is the me. So no matter what you're building, whether it is a legendary relationship, um, yourself as a leader, so you can lead other people, or your career, your business as an entrepreneur, self development, personal development, growing yourself first is always the first pillar, because you can't lead others if you don't take responsibility of yourself. If you don't develop yourself, you're going to be pretty much so reactive in every aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see how you got it. You nail it there, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and John Maxwell talks about it right inside that first book, the one I've read 3 times, really, as it was given to me once, but I've read it more times. I've met John Maxwell in person. But one of those 21 laws is the law of the lid. And he often draws a picture like this. Like your team, you will only grow as much as you can grow as a leader. You will put a lid on top of them and on top of your organization if you're not committed to your own personal growth. It's just become so true. And I see it happen all the time in organizations.
Absolutely. I see that happen in couples, small organizations.
And couples as well. You're exactly right. I mean, it works in life and it works in the business world.
That's
Absolutely.
right. That's right. So let's talk a little bit about your method, the greatest story ever told. Such a bold and intriguing concept. Can you walk us through what it means and how it helps leaders rewrite their narrative?
I will, absolutely. And I love calling it the greatest story ever told. Look, and I don't try to downplay this. As a man of faith, I know that ultimately the Bible to me is the greatest story ever told, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. In the life of a leader, inside of homes, inside of communities, in families, or inside of businesses, I believe the greatest story ever told really comes down to one impact activity. When someone sits down in a room in the future and they're asked by someone else to write the name of 5 individuals who have made a positive impact on their life, and when someone writes your name on that list, to me, that's the greatest story ever told. And ideally, you never really know if someone's writing your name on that list. You may not be in the room when that happens. But I can tell you this, you can probably think of 4 or 5 people, including a spouse, including a family member, or those you work with, that you would like to write your name on their list in the future and have an impact on those individuals. So to be able to do that, you've got to be very intentional. You've got to develop a plan to intentionally build the relationships and build the structures around that as a leader, thus recognizing that into the future, it doesn't happen if you're not intentional. So I teach a 7-step methodology ultimately that I refer to as the greatest story ever told, because that's the outcome. That's the deliverable at the end, is the impact, the legacy that you want to leave as a leader. Maya Angelou's famous quote that's attributed to her: people won't remember what you said, they won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's really something that you've got to build intentionally if you want that to happen.
And how do you build that?
So you start off with that decision, right? That I want that to really happen. I use a framework ultimately to help people develop, whether you call it their purpose statement or their mission statement or their future vision in terms of what that looks like to them. And it's a 3-step framework that I talk about. It's so what, now what, and so that. And ultimately, that so what is that opportunity, if you will. It's that vision that you have or a target that you shoot for into the future with regards to the impact. And again, it can be the relationship with your spouse or with your children or with your grandchildren into the future. Might be the impact you want to have inside of your business. But what is that opportunity that you create? That's the so what. The now what then is I must take an action. I must change. I must improve. I must get better in some way, shape, or form. Because if it doesn't happen, if I don't make any changes, then that opportunity really just is a wish or it's just a dream. It's not going to come to fruition. But ultimately, it's that third step in the framework that gets you out of bed every day. It's that third step in the framework that keeps you from hitting the snooze button in the morning. It's that third step in the framework that keeps you from doom scrolling on your phone. And that's the so that. It's the why that goes along with those activities. So you don't exercise just to lose weight. You don't exercise just to look good in the mirror. While those are both very important outcomes, I believe the big so that inside of your exercise, at least for me, as I look to transform my life physically, is so that I can get on the floor with my grandchildren in the future and have tea with a granddaughter or shoot hoops with a grandson or actually walk into the church when my grandchildren get married one day. To be able to do all those things is why it's the so that that is the outcome of that decision of that first step. So it starts right there inside that decision. Once you make that decision, if you can get that clarity, the rest of the steps become, while they're not easy, they certainly become very simple. You develop a dashboard. What does it look like to be successful? Whether it's an assessment on a score of 1 to 7, but you develop that dashboard. How will you know when you get there? The third step you identify are the if you will, the things that are getting in your way. What are the barriers that are going to keep you from being successful? And then the fourth step is to design the solution. What are the habits, daily, weekly, monthly, that I must complete on a regular basis to be successful and to achieve that dream? The next step is the discipline that's actually required, actually carrying out that plan. Once again, if you don't put it on your calendar and make it happen, you don't plan your time, somebody else will. There's no doubt about that. And then once you've gone through a cycle there, reflection is very important. Or I call it the dwell time. I need to sit down on a periodic basis and take a look what's going well with regards to that plan that I wrote and what could be going better and what adjustments do I need to make to go forward. Those are the 6 steps ultimately that are pretty powerful. But the 7th step, folks want to get to a point where they're done. And what you have to realize is that once you think you're done, you've just begun. You got to go back through that cycle again and go and start all over again. So you get the chance to say, I'm going to do it again. And I look at my mission statement and say, is it still aligned with where I am in my life right now? And I start to look at all those things, the scoreboard, reset the goals on an annual basis, whatever that means. But I invest the time with leaders. I invest the time with individual leaders and organizations walking through those 7 steps for success, whether it's important for them as a leader to understand what their purpose is, or whether it's important for an organization to understand what their purpose is, that it's a journey that they really never reach the end of it, but it's something that can bear some tremendous fruit, back to the greatest story ever told, in the future.
Wow, there you go. Life engineering at its best.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Process, you know what it is, right? Absolutely.
that's it. You're an engineer, I'm an engineer. And I love that you have that step of course correction. Measure, course
Mm-hmm.
correct. Feedback, course correct, right? The body works that way.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't our lives work that way? Right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
body's constantly measuring and course correcting, so we have homeostasis. So life is the same. I just loved it. This life engineering framework, it's really, in my view, what it takes to create a life of no regret. Life of no
Mm-hmm.
regret is not a life where you succeeded at everything, but
It's so funny. It's cliche, but some people say I spend more time planning my summer vacation than I do planning my life. Like, you've got to plan your life. You've got to be intentional. I love the term life engineering as you think about it, as you define it. Many people say that's very constricting. I actually say it's very freeing to be able to do that, so that I know what I have to get done, so that I can do what I want to do with others.
right,
Once I
and
get my
it's
stuff
in the
done, now I
right
can do
mindset.
what I want to do. Yeah.
That's right. Oh, loved it, loved it. So okay, so I have a follow-up question to that. And we were talking about leaders, and you describe your framework, the 7 steps that you lead them to engineer to become those leaders that create a life of no regret. What qualities set uncommon leaders apart from the rest?
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
and
Two
now,
part.
and then how can everyday professionals start cultivating those traits today? Basically, that will be
Sure.
the second part of the question.
To me, I think the most basic difference in what would be the common leader and the uncommon leader. Common leaders, I believe, ultimately, and I say they are there to be served. Okay, but the uncommon leader is one who chooses to serve others. Is a servant leader. Is others focused. And you touched on this already a little bit with self care. That doesn't mean they don't take care of themselves. They've got to take care of themselves first, so that they can be the leader, the servant leader that they were called to be. It's very scriptural, again, as it goes through. Even Jesus was not sent to be served, but to serve. And I believe that is our calling as leaders, to serve others, to inspire, encourage, and equip other leaders to be successful. So I believe that's, a little bit of that. You mentioned the shopping cart story. A common leader, common person leaves their shopping cart in the middle of the parking lot for it to roll around and hit other cars. Very self-centered. It's fewer steps they have to walk, whatever it is. It's, we can go as far as to say some of them are lazy, and many have stories. They may not be able to return those carts and things like that. But the uncommon leader not only returns their own cart, but they look to serve others, and they see that floating cart that needs to be shepherded, if you will, into the corral so that it's in the right place, or taking somebody's cart for them and pushing it into the store. It's a very um, small metaphor with regards to the difference in common and uncommon, but it plays really well, and it's a big
It
part
is
of my life.
very
And so,
powerful because it's also a situation. It's a day-to-day situation we all
yes.
find ourselves in. Yeah.
hmm When I tell this story, when I present, and hopefully folks see that, like, they'll never see a shopping cart in a parking lot the same way again. Okay. And I'm not saying that to make them feel guilty. I'm just saying that to trigger a thought, like, there's a story behind that shopping cart sitting in the middle of that aisle. Somebody may have been having a bad day. And so easily, it's easy for us as leaders, it's easy for us as humans, excuse me, to judge someone who would leave their shopping cart in the middle of the aisle. But if we just take that servant approach and say, regardless of who or why it was left there, just take it back. Don't view it as it's not my job. View it as you're serving somebody else to make it easier for them in the future. So,
I love that. I always say when it comes to receiving, it's between you and God. When it comes to giving, it's between you and everybody else.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. See everyone else when it comes to offering, giving, serving. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I want to switch a little bit to more personal stories.
Okay.
Okay, if that's okay. I have a personal question for you. You have a story of transformation. It was featured in the Men's Health.
Hmm.
Please take us through that story.
Sure. Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to chat about it. It's one of my favorite stories to chat about, and it goes back. I mean, I remember the date. It was January 11th, 2017,
Okay.
when I was sitting around at home, and it's easy to kind of tie that time to New Year's resolution, but it wasn't what it was always about. My heart was racing though, and I knew I was having some type of health issues. 47 years old, I knew I was overweight and out of shape. And I thought to myself, I got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Ultimately, I need to do something about this. And I walked into a fitness facility or a gym that I had driven by hundreds of times in my life. I saw the name of it on the outside, 180 Fitness. And I was determined at that point in time to make a change. I walked inside and I was looking for the first trainer. I knew I needed help. Just like in coaching, in business coaching or in life coaching, I need help. I need assistance. I need mentors. I needed someone to help me on the fitness journey to get there. And I walked up to the first girl that was there as a trainer and really told her, I need help. I want to change. Can you help me? And she kind of talked to me about a couple of questions. She said, I just want to let you know, it was just a few years ago that I lost my dad to a major heart attack at 45 years old. And this is why I do this. And so I knew
I have
at that point in time, I knew at that point in time, like, I was supposed to be working with Margot. Now, don't get me wrong. Margot and I worked together for about 3 years. I went on that journey and lost 80 pounds over those 3 years. And she did not take it easy on me, if you will, in terms of going through that journey. It was a hard journey, but I learned so many things because part of that was I was still coaching at times there, and I was coaching others to be more disciplined in their health, yet I wasn't modeling that as a leader. And I knew I needed to model that. I needed to get my health better, but I also needed to model for my family and for my clients, what good health looked like. And ultimately, by the end of 2019, I had lost 80 pounds. And since then, I've been able to maintain that really well with a healthy lifestyle. It's not diets anymore or anything like that, but it really came back to, I didn't call it this at the time, but that's so that I wanted to be there. And this time I was really talking about wanting to be there just for my sons to graduate from college or see them get married. But again, that's where that continuous improvement. Now I'm talking about being there for my grandchildren and when they get married in the future, of continuously improving that and getting better on my health and really trying to challenge myself continually all the way up to just this past Saturday, running in my second Spartan race with a few friends. So there were things that had to happen. I needed a coach to make that happen. I needed an accountability group, if you will, and had friends that I basically communicated what my goals were and what my changes were. And I had them to help hold me accountable as well when they saw me out and I was eating those French fries. The hashtag stop eating French fries became one of my mantras for a couple years that had very little to do with French fries and had everything to do with those bad habits that we get into as leaders, okay, on a regular basis, hitting that snooze button. You can say stop hitting the snooze button or stop scrolling on social media or stop checking my email every 5 minutes, whatever it is. But it's that one small thing that you need to do differently to get you to the place that you need to be. And it's an incremental improvement. It's not a fad diet that gets you there and then you're there forever. It's hard work in your life, in your fitness, in your finances, in your faith development, all those things. And you've got to stack those habits over and over again to be successful. So that journey was a lot of fun. At the end of that, when I lost that 80 pounds, I was using the Lose It app, another thing to do where I was tracking my calories on a regular basis. And that app picked up my weight loss. Once I hit 75 pounds, it sent me one of those little trophies, it gamified. But I was also contacted by the Lose It and said, we'd love to share your story with others. Would you be interested in sharing it? And they connected me with Men's Health Magazine online, shared my story with them in an interview, and it's been immortalized out there on the internet for 7 years. It says how this guy lost 80 pounds with a friend and a fitness tracker, I think was the title of the article that sits there in Men's Health. It's kind of fun to see it pop up every once in a while. But it was inspirational to me. It's a story that I use with others, and it was great modeling for my family as well. So,
Because the uncommon leader walks their talks, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I can get over the story of divine timing here, that the moment you made that decision, you walk into the gym and the person that is waiting for you is
I know.
exactly the person that you need to work with, and how you were serving each other. That's gives me goosebumps. I have to tell
Gabriela, there's no doubt for me as a man of faith that it was a God thing that, she was put in my life to help probably save me. I probably wouldn't be here today if I hadn't made that choice in terms of where I was from a health standpoint. And again, I keep coaches while I've moved away, so I don't work with her directly, but I still have a fitness and a health coach as I continue to try to improve things like my sleep. And again, just preparing ultimately to run some of these races that I never would have thought of doing something hard like that as well. That's been a lot of fun.
So you mentioned, I have no doubt, God put that person. I love that you weigh faith into your leadership lens. And
Mm-hmm.
how has your relationship with God shaped your approach to influence and business? How do you help others connect their leadership to something bigger than themselves?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, in terms of faith in my business, like I don't get the Bible out when I'm coaching others, or it's a part of it's weaved into, if you will, the process that's there. It's really about how I'm living out my life. And if I say that I'm going to be a Christian, much like if I say I'm going to be a healthy person, the uncommon leader goes through that. If I say that I'm a Christian, I need my faithfulness to show that. And so for me, it manifests itself in many ways. The disciplines that are very important for me to learn, being in scripture on a daily basis, This will be the fifth year that I've read through the entire Bible in the last 5 years. An accomplishment that I used to say all the time. I really ought to think about reading the Bible. But once I got really, committed to growing the knowledge that I have, that became a very important discipline for me. And then the second part of that, much like, again, leaders, is the circle of individuals that I'm with that help to raise me up and help to challenge me from a faith standpoint. So those disciplines that exist, I mean, I believe there's really 3 leadership books that were written that ultimately are all other leadership books. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Think and Grow Rich, and the Bible. And the principles that are taught in other leadership books just kind of revolve around those 3. But that I do believe, the Bible is one of the best leadership books that's ever written. So I'll work on my content or work on my, if you will, teaching based on some of the parables that are in the Bible and the stories that are written, whether it's the parable of the sower or the parable of the talents, and are we using the gifts that we've been given, that we were called to use as children of God to make a bigger impact? And a lot of folks will talk about being in business, but I really look at that, the greatest story ever told, as an organization. What impact are you having beyond profitability on the communities that you serve, on the employees that you have? And there's one set of scripture in 1 Peter that I really talk about a bunch in my teaching, not directly or indirectly, but how am I showing love to the people that I work with, right? How am I investing in that with them? How am I showing hospitality to those individuals? And again, it still could be at work in terms of creating a welcoming environment, or whatever that means. And the third thing is, how am I utilizing the gifts that I've been given? I've been given a gift of leadership and a gift of process knowledge, if you will, to be able to evaluate processes. How am I using that on a regular basis to ultimately serve and make a bigger impact on the kingdom? Whether that's me working with the leadership team at church, which I've done. I've coached the individual pastors at our church, but also it's, again, bringing up and just having conversation and building relationships with each of the clients that I have and each of the organizations that I work with. So that's been something that's been an evolution for me as well. I wasn't always overt in terms of talking about it as much in terms of the 2 overlaps. And I find as leaders, again, back to the common versus the uncommon, many times we like to keep those 2 lives separated, our faith life on Sundays and our business life, Monday through Friday. And, as uncommon leaders, I don't know how we can divide those 2 things. They've got to be overlapping in how we live.
You have to be the way you are, and be authentic with who you are and your faith and your values. Your values are not divided in the wheel.
That's right.
Your values are your
exactly.
Decision. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ooh, that's no words. But let me ask you one more question, because I have to ask you this question. You know where I'm going. You have a clue where I'm going now? What would be my next question to you, knowing me and what I'm passionate about?
Well, you're probably gonna ask me how I do this in the relationship with my spouse as well, right? In terms of working on some of these disciplines.
So that's right. Let's go into your marriage. I mean, you've been married for 29 years.
Yeah.
That's a legend itself, right?
Yeah, two sons, adult sons, married for going on now. I mean, in terms of writing, they almost up to we're over 30 now, and really working. And the intentionality that I use in my business or in my fitness or in my spiritual personal development has got to be a very similar intentionality that I use with my spouse. Okay. So I encourage individuals on the leadership side, on the uncommon leadership side, to, in essence, create their ideal week. And by creating their ideal week, recognizing these are the things I need to do daily or weekly to be successful in life. And if that means that I need to schedule my date night with my spouse on a regular basis on Tuesdays, and we put that on the calendar, then we have to be that intentional. Okay. I mean, my wife and I, we have a devotional that we read at night in bed before we go to sleep as well. So making that or making our faith a big part of our marriage. We serve together at church on a regular basis. And it doesn't mean that everything's perfect either. You talk about it as a power couple, that it's recognizing that we should use prayer and scripture to also solve our differences that we have as well on a regular basis. I mean, it's, God didn't say everything was going to be easy once we got married. In fact, even Paul said I think it was in First Corinthians, he said, it's frankly better if you don't get married. You won't have that worry about serving somebody else, and you can stay focused on serving God. And while that may be taken literally by some, it really is, how do we make sure we're serving God and serving each other, being second in our marriage? So being intentional, just like you are in your business and your fitness, is as important with your spouse. Like I often talk about, there's really 6 areas that we as leaders need to focus in. There's our work, and that's one of them. And that's a very big part of that bucket. There's no doubt about it. If we don't, make any money, there can really be no mission. That's just how it is. We, as individuals and as companies, there's got to be profitability if we're going to be able to serve out and live out our purpose. But the other areas are family, which includes your spouse and your children, your fitness, your faith, your finances. And then the 6th one that I talk about is fun, and scheduling fun into your day, because that can really, into your day or into your week, that can really get old real fast, and the clock will tick off really fast, being focused on all those areas. But scheduling time in each of those 6 areas is very important, and being intentional. If you don't schedule your time, somebody else will. There's no doubt about it. And so I think it's very important to put those into your week to make sure you have that scheduled, and start with your faith and your family. Don't put all your work stuff in and then try to back into time with your faith and your family, but start with your faith and your family, and then pull your work into it as well.
That's right. I always say, if you are not creating your best life, you are creating someone else's life.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Are there any final words you would like to share with the listeners?
Well, sure. And again, Gabriela, what you're doing, Gabriela, is so cool. Go ahead.
No, if you could share anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to share.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's not anything new or missing. As I've gone through this, talked about the 7 steps to personal or organizational transformation, or shared some of the stories, that go along with that. What I truly believe, and this is something that came up on my son was a cheerleader at Liberty University when he went through college, and Liberty University actually posted a page with a quote that said, "Excellence," still up on my wall. So I keep looking up there. "Excellence only happens on purpose." And when I looked at that quote, I thought that was really cool. When I looked behind the quote and saw the picture, it was my son carrying the Liberty University flag across the football field. And so they didn't tag him necessarily. I'm like, oh my goodness, I know that guy that's doing that. And so the discipline and the training that he had to have to carry that huge flag, basically 100 yards on a football field in the middle of a game, and the pressure that went along with that, I knew that excellence only happened behind the scenes with regards to the weightlifting and practice he had to do. And whether that's in our life, whether that's in the legacy that we want to live, going all the way back to the greatest story ever told, that excellence in life, that excellence in our faith, that excellence in our work only happens on purpose. And I just encourage folks to recognize what is the purpose that they have, that they're being called to lead out. And if folks have an interest in having me help them to develop what that purpose is, I'd be more than happy to offer your listeners a free call, Gabriela, to chat about that and what that looks like.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John, for sharing your wisdom, really, like your journey, and sharing your heart with us. It's clear your passion for helping leaders rise, not just in title, but in purpose. It's evident and very inspiring. So before we wrap, I'd like to flip the mic for a moment. I learned that from someone else I can remember. Is there a question you would like to ask me about life, leadership, or anything that's in your mind?
What type of question would I ask you? So this is something that's come up, Gabrielle, and I think you can use this. I'm going to go ahead and ask you anyway. It's really a 2-part question.
Okay.
So oftentimes, again, we as leaders, we as friends, one of our favorite questions, we've seen somebody, "How you doing?" And generally the answer can be, "I'm busy," or "I'm fine," or whatever that means. Just about a week ago, I had an individual at our men's study group say, "How you doing, really?" And he said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being awful and 10 being fantastic, how are you doing, really? Oh, wait, and you can't use the number 7, which I thought was a fascinating thinking through. You can't use the number
Is
7.
the number?
You cannot use the score of 7. You can use any score you want to, either 1 through 6, how you're doing, or 8, 9, or 10, but you cannot use the number 7. So, Gabriela, how you doing? And then I'll ask you a second question. Really?
So you want me to score? Give you a
Yeah.
score?
Once you answer how you're doing, how you're doing.
I'm doing an 8.
8.
I see
Love
that
that.
I'm enjoying my summer. I feel really blessed. I enjoy, every day I go for a walk by my home near the river, the St. Lawrence River, and I just feel so blessed to be living here.
Hmm.
I'm always in wonder. I never get
Yeah.
used to the scenery. Everybody's healthy. Yesterday I spent the day planning we're having a couples retreat. I was in nature at this beautiful waterfall and spa retreat center we're going to be holding. So just being busy, doing what I love intentionally and with purpose, and feeling like I'm being guided in my mission. So
Mm. Love that. And I'm a coach. I'm a driver of change, right? So you didn't say you were a 10 by any stretch. Things weren't perfect. And so I might ask you, what's one thing you can do this week to go from an 8 to a 9? What's one thing you could do this week
it's
to
a
go from an
fantastic
8 to a
question.
9?
I think I need to look at what I'm doing on a daily basis and
Mm.
shuffle a little bit the cards
Love that.
because I might not be focusing enough on certain aspects that I want.
There you go. So I just think that's a great technique at the kitchen table, in bed at night, with a leader that you're coaching, whatever it is. How are you doing, really? And then asking just what's one thing you could do to move it? Ultimately, as the individuals, you can ask them at the end, how can I support you
I
as well
just love
to
that
get you
question.
there? But
This is gonna
yeah.
be so. So here's the thing. I just wrote this week. I started my newsletter on LinkedIn, and I wrote an article about our dinner table and the ritual of the dinner table and how we raise coach leaders around the
Mm-hmm.
dinner table, which are our 3 children, and how they coach each other. And I think I'm gonna bring that question
Yeah.
to tomorrow's night dinner. I
There you
love it.
go.
Love it. Last week it was about a ripple effect. I'm reading the book The Ripple Effect from Steve Harper, and I brought the 3 types of networkers and
Mm.
discuss how we see each other. So thank you for that. You just
Yeah,
brought
you're
me
welcome.
a topic for discussion for tomorrow night's dinner.
There you go.
Love it.
Fantastic.
John, this has been such a treat. Please tell us where people can find you, how can they connect with you, benefit from your services.
Gabriela, thank you so much for the opportunity again today. What you're doing is so important, whether it's with couples that you're working with in life engineering, or just the podcast that you have right now and allowing others to share their stories. If folks are interested in contacting me, the easiest way is just to go out to my website, coachjohngallagher.com. And really, if they are interested in having a conversation about what that looks like in the future to help them understand what their purpose is and who's going to write their name on the list of folks who have impacted their life, there's a button there right on the website that they can click for a free call. My social media handles are on there as well.
Thank you so much, John. And I will also say, don't forget to tune into John's podcast, The Uncommon
Mm.
Leader, and subscribe to his weekly Champions group. Right? You can quickly
Yes.
add that. And if you're ready to lead with great clarity, conviction, and connection, this is your invitation to become the powerful influence you were created to be. Thank you, John, from the bottom of my heart. Until next time, everyone, stay grounded, growing, and keep engineering your life with intention. Bye for now.
Bye bye.
Oh, wow.